Listen, progress is not always about forward movement or speed. Progress is primarily about alignment, which may appear sometimes as stagnation, as crawling, or as delay. This is very important. Welcome to the first ever edition, the first ever episode of the Modus Operandi podcast, hosted by yours truly, Dr. B. Mark, aka Dr. Macaulay Barnabas Osage. This has been a long time coming. Well, I started writing on social media spaces. It should be in 2012, actively anyway. I started writing on Facebook, quite an interesting journey. At some point, I had to take a break. Then I began writing on WhatsApp. It felt more intimate and comfortable to express my thoughts. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone that has contributed to the manifestation, to the realization of this podcast. The first thank you goes to my beautiful wife, Favor. I love you so much. Thank you for the push. Thank you for your spirit of excellence. It has been beautiful. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the reality of this in one way or the other. Thanks to Efosa for the logo, for the graphics. I truly appreciate it. Even for the montage. A very big thank you to my friends. You guys are too numerous to name. So thank you so much. I was contemplating some days ago if I'm doing this at the right time. But then again, I realized that there is really no right time to begin anything, in a sense. If you wait for the perfect moment, sometimes you may never begin the project. So I think here is the time. Now is the time to begin this journey. What inspired the Modus Operandi podcast? Remember, we're in the age of information. We're in the age of artificial intelligence. We have knowledge replete everywhere across the internet, across the universe. Access to information is easier now. So I realized that it is one thing to have information around you. It is another thing to possess the necessary capacity to interpret this information, not just interpret the information, to apply it as it pertains to your unique path. And what we call that is wisdom. Yes, AI is not wise, but humans are. That is the difference. So you don't just want to be someone who is educated online from, would I say, superficial sources. You want something that is reasonable, well put together, that aligns with what you are going through in different shapes or form. So that is one of the purposes of this podcast. Across my time, across my path here in life, I have seen several insightful quotes by people that I respect. One of them is Abraham Maslow. He said something very life-changing one time. He said, if hammer is the only tool you have, you tend to see every problem as a nail. Life generally requires you to have numerous skills, numerous tools to solve numerous problems. You don't want to carry your hammer to solve a problem that requires a needle. You don't want to use your hammer to solve a problem that requires a knife or the one that requires a plier. You want to have the necessary tools for the problems that comes. So this is very vital as you fulfill your purpose here on earth. Another quote that inspires me is one by Buckminster Fuller. He said, there is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. On the surface level, you will think the quotes, the statement is pessimistic, but no, it is one that opens your eyes and your heart to the world of possibilities, to make you realize that most times in life, our gifts are oftentimes wrapped in packages we don't expect, in opportunities, in situations, even in ourselves. We have a lot of persons walking across the surface of this earth who do not really know who they are. They have adopted what people tell them. They have adopted what the society impose on them and taking it as their own. Many persons are caterpillar. People are telling them, you are just a worm. But they don't know that they possess the DNA of a butterfly. That it is just a matter of time and a coordination of effort. They will come into the fullness of who they truly are. So I want to, in my own capacity, with the privilege of the gift I have, share my experiences, my understanding, and hope that somehow in this time of discipleship, in this time of mentoring, in this time of inspiration, people get to be properly developed in their path across different fields and strata of life. So these are the fundamentals. These are the reason why I have told myself to begin on this journey with you. And I trust that it is going to be something that you don't regret. At the end of the day, I want the listener not just to receive light, but to apply light and become a better version of themselves. That is where true fulfillment is, to take God-given purpose and bring it to life. So, you're welcome to the first ever episode, once again, of Modus Operandi, as hosted by yours truly, Dr. B. Mac, aka Dr. Macaulay Barnabas Osage. So the first ever episode of Modus Operandi, I'll be talking about something very relatable. I'll be opening our eyes, hopefully, to certain realities that I think have been suppressed over time. And I believe that at the end of the day, there will be so much rest in your heart. That is what light does. It brings rest. Scripture says that labor to enter rest, because in rest is life, not lackadaisical attitude. Rest. Rest is light. Rest is understanding. So we're talking about the Joshuas and the David. The Joshuas and the David. What do I mean by the Joshuas and the David? I want to talk about something that has to do with early bloomers and late bloomers. Early bloomers and late bloomers. Yes, there is such a thing as an early bloomer, and there's such a thing as a late bloomer. Oh, yes. Have you ever asked yourself, that is, if you're a late bloomer, am I cursed? Is there something wrong with me? At one point in your life, I believe that you must have asked that question, like, shit, did they do me for village? So, as we carefully dissect this topic, we will get to understand what is actually happening. The Joshuas and the Davids. In scriptures, Joshua was anointed by Moses to become the leader of the Israelites, roughly at the age of 75. Of course, no specific age was given, but scholars agree that it is between 60 to 80, but most likely 70 to 80. So for safety's sake, I would just say 75. So Joshua was anointed to become the leader of Israel at the age of 75. David, on the other hand, was first anointed to be king at the age of 70. That was who you would call a whiz kid. So we call a genius, a young genius, a Beethoven, the rest of them. He was anointed to become king at the age of 17. He later became a leader of Israel at the age of 30. So on one hand, we have the Joshuas, the late bloomers. On the other hand, we have the David, the early bloomers. So what are the factors that makes one a Joshua and makes the other person a David? So the Joshua may think that they are cursed often. The David may think they are overly blessed often. So what is the factor? What determines the path of a person into becoming a late bloomer or an early bloomer? Mind you, I know that on the average, there are people that one aspect of their life, they are early blooming. In other aspects of their life, they are late blooming. But when I talk about early bloomers and late bloomers, I'm referring to the generic being of a person. Some people generally achieve things late. They marry late, they finish school late, they give birth to children late, they make their first big break late. For the early bloomers, marry early, do this early, do that early, and the rest of them. For the late bloomers, you're looking at the early bloomers like, at the age of 18, this person is done with their BSc. At the age of 20, they're talking about MSc. 25, they already have their PhD. And at this time, they have 3 kids already. They have their job. Some other persons at the age of 18, 17, they've written their first book. They are bestsellers at the age of 22. Others, at the age of 11, they've already landed their first movie role. While you are here at the age of 40, you've gone for different auditions. You've tried different things, all the techniques. They've not chosen you. It's almost like you are thinking that it's like there's a demonic pattern in your family. I understand. But this podcast is to ensure that we have light in this conversation. But are you cursed, really? Or is there something that we are actually not talking about yet? Or something we have neglected as a society? That is the place of, before I say it, there is another quote by a late pastor called Harry Fosdick. He said, life is like a library owned by the author. In that library, there are few books he wrote himself, while the other books were written for him. I will back this up with a quote by David, written in Psalms 139, verse 16. He said, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Another statement was by Jesus in Hebrews. He said, I have come in the volume of the book, written about me to do thy will, O Lord. What is this thing about book? Is there like a scroll for each individual? And Harry Fosdick mentioning the library, books. What does it mean? What it means simply is that some things in life are fixed. Where I don't agree with Fosdick is the number of books written by who. Some are written by us, some are written by God. But we don't know the volume. We don't know the percentage. He said most are written for him, that is by the author of the library. Said most, few he writes by himself. But I know for a fact that there is no percentage. But we know that, I know that there's a part written by God, and there is a part we have to write ourselves. What do I mean? It means that life is a combination of what will be, irrespective of what I do, and what will not be until I do. It is that beautiful relationship between the will of man and the sovereignty of God. It's what makes life life. God is a creator who creates first in the spirit before manifesting it in the physical realm. In Genesis 1, it was creating in words. In 2, it was manifesting. It doesn't just create. God is not erratic. He's not erratic. So there is a construct for every person. There is a construct for every person. There is a life design for every individual. This means that there are certain times. This means that certain milestones of your life are fixed in certain seasons. It means that no matter how good the sex is, the pregnancy is going to stay for 9 months. It cannot be 3. You cannot give birth within 3 months. It means some things are fixed. Oh yes, not just in the morphology and the physiology of people. Okay, what do I mean by that? You were born a Nigerian. That is fixed. You were born an Austrian. That is fixed. You have a certain height, give or take. That is fixed. You have a certain complexion. That is fixed. You were born in a certain family. That is fixed. Those are books written for you already. And that is not just in how you look and how your disposition towards life is generally. Being an introvert, being an extrovert, and the likes. It is about your destiny path. Oh yes, about your destiny path. It means that no matter what I do, when the season has not come to the fullness, scriptures will say, in the fullness of time. In the fullness of time. In the fullness of time has little or nothing to do with chronos. It has to do with the fixed season of your life God has fixed. So everybody, everyone, don't get to choose primarily if they are to be a David or to be a Joshua. Of course, I would say ceteris paribus, because sometimes God has fixed that some people achieve something at a particular time. Somehow they just didn't start. Then they get to achieve it later on. But their Majority of persons who try everything you can think of, but it did not happen until it was time. Why for some other person, it is just happening back to back, back to back, back to back. It's like your life is on a speed train. Succession upon succession of great achievements. You got married early, your education was early, your career started on an early path, many things, even ministry, early. Why for the late achievers? None of that is happening, and they are wondering, is there something wrong with me? Am I unlucky? What is going on? So I am saying this because society has a way of glamorizing different kind of things at different points in time. Even now, society glorifies early bloomers. They refer them to as geniuses. This, that, and it makes it seem like those who are not achieving those things yet are losers. But it's not about the society. It's about you. What gives you your worth? Is it what the society says or what the giver of that life says? That is a very important question, because if the society is currently glamorizing, let's say, a plate, it does not make the cup useless. And when the society starts glamorizing the cup, it does not make the plate useless. Let me do something more organic. If the society is glamorizing flight by the eagles, oh, the eagles soar, oh, they are brilliant in the sky. If God has not made you an eagle, it does not make you useless. If you are a fish, being in the river is not a cage. And if you are a bird in the sky, being in the sky does not make you caged either. Oh yes, what is being caged? What is freedom? Is freedom for the fish leaving the water, its habitat? Absolutely no. So imagine you leaving your habitat. If you are a late bloomer, for instance, just because the society is currently glorifying flight, then you start looking at swimming like, this is rubbish. No, excel in your station. Your worth is in your station. You find fulfillment where God has placed you. That is where you find fulfillment. That is where you find life. That's where you find joy. So I'm not talking about fatalism. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future is hard to see. Oh, sera, sera, something like that. In philosophy, it is called fatalism. I'm not talking about fatalism, where you just sit down, you refer to every event that happened to you as the will of God. You are doing nothing. Again, like I established in the beginning of this conversation, some things in life won't happen until you act. While some things will happen, however you act. It means that some events, some achievements, some milestones in your path are fixed, and there is nothing you can do about it. Does that mean you should not fold your hands? No. There is the concept of patience. Patience and waiting does not mean being idle. Patience and waiting means being on the bench. You are observing. That is work. You are watching those who are currently playing on the field, who are the early bloomers. You are watching them. You are studying. At the same time, you are developing skills. You are trying this. You are trying that, until it's your time to start achieving things in quick successions. Oh, yes. So it's not que sera, sera. Because I believe that on that day when we see God, and we see Jesus, a lot of the things people call his will will not be his will, obviously. So we're talking about understanding life so that you don't die early. A lot of people are depressed. A lot of people are confused. And I understand. Even as at last month, I had to tell myself, Mark, you're not cursed. Oh yes, I will come into that later on. A lot of people are. They don't know what is happening. They don't know what to believe anymore. They have tried this, they have tried that. So this would lead me into this conversation, which is, what are the pros and the cons of being a late bloomer or an early bloomer? What are the pros and the cons of being a David or a Joshua? So I will start with the Davids, the early bloomers. One of the pros is that killing the lions, killing the bears, defending the sheep gives you an early sense of confidence. And it's important to have that early. There is speed, there is a sense of direction. You're already leading people at the age of roughly 25. You're already in the cave of Adullam. You are mentoring people into great army. For the late bloomer, at that point in time, they don't even know what is happening. So it is beautiful to have that speed. It is beautiful to have that direction and confidence. What are the cons? The cons are, for the early bloomers, because of the quick successions of events and milestones achievement, you may tend to build an identity around your successes. Oh yes, you may tend to build an identity around your progress. Yes, and that means that if you encounter a challenge, let's say a remarkable failure, for instance, it tends to affect you in the uttermost part of your heart because you have attached your identity to the result. I'm not saying result is bad. I mean, result gives us confidence sometimes. But be careful. Primarily, success ought to be from who we are, then effort and results. That's another conversation entirely. So those are one of the cons of being an early bloomer. Why am I stating this? It is for the sake of identity, so you know what to look out for, just in case you are an early bloomer. You learn to appreciate the success. We need you. We need early bloomers in this life, in the construct of things, in the scheme of things. You are needed in the scheme of things. However, watch out for developing an identity from the praise of society. You've been made to look like you are the Don, you are the king. You know what you're doing. You are brilliant. You are smart. Well, we'll come back to that. Then for the late bloomers, what are the pros? Well, for the Joshuas, the pros are, first, you develop a confidence, not from result primarily. You develop a confidence from a place of authenticity. The society must have said different things across different seasons of your life. You have learned to stay put. You have learned to stay still. You have learned to say, though you may have made mistake by following what they say, but over the years, you have developed a sense of confidence that comes from who you are primarily. That is one of the pros. Another pros of being a Joshua is the experience of skill across the years. You served under Moses for a long time. It means that there's nothing you could have done to be the leader of Israel at the age of 40. No matter what, at the age of 35, nothing. According to the path God had laid for you, God has laid for you, you have to do some things until it is time to achieve it. So you have done all that. You have developed different skills across the years. What are the cons of being a late bloomer? You are often susceptible to being envious. Yes, you are susceptible to being envious. You look at those doing something and it's not happening to you. If you are not careful, you may start being envious of them. And that can be a terrible entrapment, somewhere you don't want to be. Oh yes, so watch out for that. One of the cons of being a late bloomer is you may have to remind yourself, there is always this mental battle to tell yourself, I am not cursed, I'm not cursed, I'm not cursed. So you can see each path has its peculiarities. So for the David, their consecration often has to be to tell themselves, I am not that smart. Yes, I am grateful, I am skillful, I am intelligent, I am this, I am that. But achieving all these great feats it is not absolutely because I am smart. Remember, scripture says, the race is not always for the swift, nor the battle for the strong. Right? Chance, time, chance happens to them all. The time and chance can be fixed into that book. Haven't you ever wondered? Maybe for a project, an exam, a goal. For years, you put in the same effort, you did not attain it. Somehow, you did not achieve the result. You still impute the same effort, then you achieve it. You had the success in that same project, in that same mission, whatever it is. What happened? The same approach, but this time around, a different result. What happened is the fullness of time. So for the early bloomers, you have to remind yourself, I am not that smart. Actually, you are not that smart. Are we saying you should not give yourself some level of self-respect and all that? That's not what we are saying. What we are saying is that it is important to check yourself, telling yourself that I am not that smart. And if you are honest with yourself, there are people you will come across. It is for your humbling anyway, not to despise your past. Absolutely not. And you will come across. They've done more than you've done, but they've achieved less. If you are sincere with yourself, you will know what I am saying. There are people you've come across, in fact, better than you in intellect, in beauty, in speech, in charisma, in courage, in spirituality, in knowledge, in depth. Think about it in whatever dynamics you want to think of. But yet they are achieving smaller results, but you are achieving bigger results. It is not because you are more blessed than they are. It's not because you are more special than they are. It's not because you are more intelligent than they are. This is your life path. This is the construct of your life. Revel in it. Oh yes. Express the glory of the Lord in it. Then for the late bloomers, your time will come. We have an example. There's an example of a late bloomer that I know of, Samuel L. Jackson. A lot of them. The KFC founder, right? Samuel L. Jackson. He got his first major movie role, big break in the industry, in the Hollywood industry. This should be in 1993. Pulp Fiction, directed by Quentin Tarantino, right? Yes. This man had been going for different auditions prior, tried different things prior, but none of that worked. Not because he did something different necessarily, because there's a danger of thinking, maybe it's because I did something different. That is why I'm achieving a different result. Of course, are there contexts where you have to change the dynamics of your efforts to achieve a different result? Yes. But this conversation is talking about the fact that it is not necessarily about the effort you are putting in per se. It's about the time that has been fixed for when you will achieve certain things, no matter how hard you work. It is not to discourage your hard work, rather to give your hard work context, hope, so that you don't fall into the abyss of despising yourself, into the abyss of envy, into the abyss of self-loathing. Absolutely not. It is to silence that negative voice that whispered to you as a young bloomer, as an early bloomer, that you are a genius, that you are better than the next person because of how special you are. It's a lie. It is to silence that voice that whispered to you as a late bloomer, that tells you you are cursed, that tells you you are useless, that tells you there is nothing to write home about your life. In the Nigerian industry, it is standard that in your early 20s, you should be releasing hits. Odomodo Black released his hits in his late 20s, if it's not 30 now. That is in the secular example. Everybody has their timing. Everybody has their timing. Do not despise your days of little beginning, O ye late bloomer. And do not let the achievements get to your head, O ye early bloomer. So Joshua, David, irrespective of what the society is currently appraising. So this transforms how you see success, how you see excellence, how you see progress. Listen, progress is not always about forward movement or speed. Progress is primarily about alignment, which may appear sometimes as stagnation, as crawling, or as delay. This is very important. Progress is not always about forward movement. It's not always about speed. It is about alignment primarily, which may appear as delay. Again, this is the first ever edition of the Modus Operandi podcast by yours truly, Dr. B-Mac, aka Dr. Macaulay Barnabas Osage. It has been a pleasure doing this with you, and I hope this was helpful. Our next episode, the next episode is going to be on the concept of talent. Another hot one, but I believe this one has laid foundation for the next episode. Until next time, to have an amazing weekend.